That's it, folks. This is the final wrap-up for the remainder of the OCG metagame. Don't beg the 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. We have a couple more events here on the wrap-up, and that's going to be, well, the format's going to shift here. So I wanted to showcase what really remains of this format here. The only real thing that changed was the Sane Cred Magician. Tyr's still the most dominant deck over there, with Cash Tyr, Adamancipator, Purely, Bysteel, Exosister, Runic, Tri-Brigade, Dragonlink, and Labyrinth on the follow-up here. I mean, your biggest problem here is 83 of this pie chart is dedicated to Tyr. It's time to stop. It really is. It's time to call it a day. Oh my gosh. 26 Cash Tyr, 25 Adamancipator. Yeah, Adamancipator, kind of a very scary deck. Okay, so what we call an Adamancipator deck is actually a Grass Super Heavy Samurai Ishizu Vernal Sif Adamancipator deck. Say that 10 times fast. We also had Fossil Vernal Sif Adamancipator, 1 Grass Ishizu. It's literally just, it's like an Earth Toolbox-S deck. But 25 Purely, by the way. It's actually kind of nice. You see your Ishizu variant here. Bysteel's on 19. You've seen a lot of the same stuff here that's very present. Down here in notable things. Recently, Tyr Elements builds started playing 1 Triff Karma. So they actually started messing around with Triff Karma. Actually, is kind of a little interesting inclusion of things in here. Triff Karma has a flaw of being a dead draw while being drawn. It needs to be sent to the graveyard to make use of the card effect to solve the problem. Barricade Borg Blocker has now been played in the extra deck. So they've actually found a use for Barricade Borg Blocker. That's actually hilarious. Getting free discards here is actually kind of cool. I actually like that. That's pretty impressive. I mean, but in terms of like the rest of your innovations, this is still a very scary build. What else we got down here? I also ran 1 Triff Karma in the main deck, and have Dugaras in the extra deck as a way to discard Triff Karma. Wow, that's actually kind of hilarious. So, not only that, man, Triff Karma, considering the fact this deck's probably going to get cratered into the ground here relatively soon, we'll see how this goes. So that's some pretty interesting stuff. Cash Tyr. Now, this is very interesting because do keep in mind this deck has been greatly reduced in terms of its functionality. I mean, we have amputated a lot of value here. So I have the Kyoto Championship by Dragonstar here. This went 6-1, finished 4th place here. The top decks in the current meta, such as Tyr Elements and Adamancipator and Bysteel, rely on the graveyards, so making an Arise Heart is a powerful threat. Alright, together with Dimension Shifter and Necro Valley, Cash Tyr could shut down the opponent from making and playing any sort of involvement here, which is actually pretty good, to be honest with you. So Dimensional Barrier is now a side deck card for this metagame. Makes sense. Do keep in mind that these builds have been forced to play the power of Planet Pathfinder. Thank you, Field Spell Reduction. There's the Herald of the Abyss as well. So what does Adamancipator look like? Oh god, this is the cluster pile here. So Hashadal Genius is now a side deck card against X Purely Nor. Neshadal is also an Earth monster, so it can be sent from the deck by Vernal Sif. The Awakening Forest effect, that's kind of interesting. When Neshadal Genius Graveyard effect triggers, it can be activated by targeting the opponent's X Purely Nor. Neshadal Genius effect that prevents that monster on the field from activating its effects is not treated as affecting the monster, but is applied to the player instead. Well, that's an interesting ruling. X Purely has 5 more, is unaffected by the opponent's activated effects, and Neshadal Genius Graveyard effect will be able to stop X Purely Nor. So, since you're basically playing around with the Earth pile here, you are going to be seeing the power of that. That's a very interesting tech choice here to kind of shut down what the opponent is going to be swinging. And of course, you do see Smoke Grenade down here, turning into a more problem card. Now, Innovations down here. Yep, there's Arshadal. That's actually kind of cool for an Earth effect. Purely. Okay, so let's see here. Rainbow Bridge of Salvation with the Cobalt here. Now, this is actually kind of interesting. So we have actually seen the inclusion of Secret Village now in this deck. The Rainbow Bridge actually gives you tutor ability for your field spell. So you can actually search for the Cobalt here. So you're going to get a little bit of interesting value on that. That's actually incredibly useful. Secret Village also plopping down in here. And you are getting access to the Dimensional Fissures to detour anything that the opponent might do. And of course you do see the Herald of the Abyss still showing up down here. So at the end of the OCG format, Tier Element still remains lean with Kashtira and Adamantipator behind, and Kurikara here actually kind of starting to see a little bit of play. So that's kind of where we're sitting in terms of like the breakdown data. Now we had 2 events since then here. So we had the China City tournament. Shenyang was held on March 18th and 19th and had 288 participants. Now you're not going to have a lot of the breakdown here, but you are going to see that a Shizu tier branded and super heavy Bysteel here were amongst your top 4 here for this. Now your Shizu tier decks, once again you see here that Triff Karma stepping back up into the light here to showcase the power that this is. I see that we are also playing Fairy Tale Snow here. Let me tell you, the fact that this deck gets access to Fairy Tale Snow, we know that that card is such a problem card, and the fact that it has been cleaned up how many times at this point on list, I'm actually incredibly happy to see that we don't have to deal with this. Like that's a really good cleanup. I actually side and Drolls down here as well, and Ghost Reapers. Oh my gosh, free value. Now this build is a lot more standard. Once again, Fairy Tale Snow showing its ugly head here. More Droll and Lockbird down here. Yeah, this tier deck has become so standard. Now, what does branded look like in the OCG? Well, with their 1 branded fusion and their 1 Despia branded opening here, this deck is, I mean, it's got its full power, which is impressive. But the problem with this is it lacks so much value. And that's like my biggest concern here is, you know, whatever you're trying to do in terms of, you know, the playability for this deck, if your branded fusion gets stopped, you're walking away and calling it a day. You do have like Blazing Cartesia to like backdoor in. I do see that we are playing the Gimmick Puppet here, so the OCG figured that out. I'm also very impressed the fact that they are main decking the whole Expulsion here. So this build has actually opted to main deck the Expulsion with the Gimmick Puppet. Okay. Of course, you see all the power cards that this deck gets, and they're forced to play the Exceed Encore for the Big Cat. Big Cat is an issue. As much as you don't want to admit it, it is. Now we also have Bysteel, Super Heavy Samurai, aka Abuse Pepega Ruler to the Moon. How many level 10 synchros can we make? Oh, look, Baron, Super Heavy Guy. These pendulum scales are absolutely devastating, man. Like, they're so crazy. I also see down here that we have access to this. We can actually board in skill drains as well. Oh my gosh. You're like, oh, hey, you know, like, this matchup's not too fun. Let's go ahead and board in some skill drains to laugh at the opponent. Well, that's definitely something. So very interesting to see that. Now, our other CCT tournament here, a little bit more interesting. I see that we did have a Shizu, Bysteel Dragon Link, Tenyi Sword Soul, Super Heavy Samurai, some Labyrinth, Meta Beat. Is that anti-meta? Well, let's get down here and see our tier list. Once again, it looks incredibly standard, man. Like, Thrust with the Herald of Abyss, Bysteel Dragon Link. Oh, this is something a little bit more interesting. I see very standard stuff. This is cool. We're playing Triple Saronir to dump this. Okay. Makes sense. Our Sword Soul variant, they still have this good card. I wish we could have this. This is so good. But once again, we don't get access to that. Perfectly understandable. 3 Herald of the Abyss. Our Shizu Tier Elements deck, still standard metagame breaker the way it looks here. Still relying on a lot of the same stuff that you need to a Foolish Burial Goods for dumping. That's kind of cool. Our Super Heavy Samurai deck here, oh boy, I see that we are still focusing on the scales. We are playing Epsilon, this one. Interesting choice. We don't have a side deck for this, but I can tell you just looking at the way that this is constructed, this actually looks incredibly useful and interesting. Okay. And then we have Meta Beat down here. Oh boy. So this is, I guess, the definition of an anti-meta stun deck right now. So Lords, we are playing Dimension Shifters, Skill Drains Detour the opponent, and we are playing the Supreme King Soul with Necrovalleys. And, I mean, Birth and Unicorn in here. Interesting. Huh. The side deck down here, we're playing Grisu? What? Is that just to make a Galtea? This deck is so big-brained, I have no idea what in the world's going on. We have the Divine Carnates, we have the Inspector Border, we have Judgments. What in the world is this doing? I guess this is just making large fields and trying to punish the opponent? Very, very interesting to see the power of an anti-meta monster like this, though. This actually opens up some pretty interesting doors for things I would want to consider testing, but... Okay, so what do you guys think about these lists? Please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.